Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese here as always with Nima Tavali. Another week, another crazy 7 days on the Mercato. The biggest news is that Gianluca Scamacca has decided to join Atalanta, a big blow for Inter, who must now sign an alternative attacker. Could it be Folarin Balogun of Arsenal? Atalanta have also sealed the loan signing of Charles De Ketelaere. Can he resurrect himself at Atalanta, and why was he such a disaster at Milan? Inter have finally closed the deal for Yann Sommer. They now have a goalkeeper, and these will be key days in the negotiations for the Dusan Vlahovic Romelu Lukaku swap with Chelsea and Juventus. Juventus also may have the chance to sign Gianluigi, and they could keep Weston McKennie. Lots to talk about with Juve again. Napoli have finally signed their replacement for Kim Min-jae. Roma are in talks to sell Roger Ibañez, while Gaetano Castrovilli's move to Bournemouth has collapsed due to his knee. Marco Verratti could move to Saudi Arabia. And we also have some more shocking crimes of Prem facery, so stick to the end for that. And finally, the greatest goalkeeper of all time, the GOAT of goalkeepers, has retired. So we will commemorate the great career of Gigi Buffon. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode, which we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all our content that we do throughout the week, including our weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday, where we answer all the questions sent in from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. And for all of you listening on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it giving us a 5-star rating. Follow, subscribe to us. It really helps us to grow. Also, you can give us a follow on YouTube as well. So let's get into today's show. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Making your own podcast is fun, but the production of podcasts can also be challenging if you don't have the right software. With Zencastr, the whole process is quick and straightforward. Here at the Italian Football Podcast, we aim to have the highest of standards, and Zencastr provides crystal clear sound and fantastic HD video quality. Furthermore, it's really easy to use. Even boomers like Carlo can manage. There's nothing to download, just one click, and we start recording each episode. Zencastr ensures that your podcasting experience is easy and enjoyable. You don't even have to leave your browser, as it possesses all the tools required to get the episode done, from local recording to automatic post-productions. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code ItalianFootball, one word. You'll get 30% off your first 3 months of Zencastr Professional. We want you to have the same easy experiences that we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Okay, so let's start off with Gigi Buffon, who has now announced his retirement at the grand old age of 45 after an incredible 28-year professional career. So Nima, how do you possibly sum up the career of Gigi Buffon?
It's very difficult to sum it up because I my very, very first memory of him is watching his debut against Milan at the Ennio Tardini for Parma when he was 17 years old against Milan with Vea Baggio, and he was the man of the match, a goalless draw. During the era when the Serie A was the best league in the world, probably, during an era where every world-class player played in Italy, the era that I don't think it's possible to ever be replicated again. But it was that game, I remember, I was like, who is this 17-year-old? Because it wasn't just that he kept a clean sheet. It was a fantastic saves, the way he communicated with the defense, and that defense was pretty damn good itself. Just go and look at who started there. It was truly, everyone was like, wow, what did we just witness something historic here? And we did. That was the beginning, because after that, of course, he became Gigi Buffon a few years later. And of course, when Parma's financial woes hit them, he went to Juve and became a club legend there. And he really does have some incredible records to his name, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, his records, the list of records, there's too many to sum up on this pod, but most Serie A appearances, most career club appearances by an Italian, most Scudetti won, the record for minutes without conceding, going almost 1,000 minutes of football in Serie A, 10 consecutive clean sheets, the most clean sheets in the history of Serie A, the oldest player to win the Scudetto, the oldest player to play for Juventus, the second oldest player to ever play in Serie A, the oldest goalkeeper to save a penalty, the most Serie A appearances and the most Champions League appearances for Juventus, the joint most World Cups played in, 5, and it would have been 6 if it hadn't been for the failure to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. He would have gone to a record 6. No one's ever done that, and maybe never will. So it's unbelievable, and I think the longevity of Buffon's career is and for how long he played at a world-class level is what stands him apart from all the other legendary goalkeepers that there have been in the past, and it's what makes him the GOAT of goalkeepers. I mean, this is someone, like you said, debuted at the age of 17 in 1995. He played for 28 years, but for most of that time, for a good quarter of a century, he was playing at the highest level and at a world-class level for most of that time. And, you know, he was already world-class and playing for Italy as a teenager. And over 20 years later, at the age of 39, he was named the best goalkeeper in the world at the Ballon d'Or ceremony. So no goalkeeper in history comes close to that longevity, and that longevity at the very, very top. He was like, I think, the Paolo Maldini of goalkeepers when you look at it that way. So, you know, it is the amazing.
Reason why I think he's the greatest of all time is because there are goalkeepers who have won more than him. I mean, what's his name? His name eludes me. Real Madrid goalkeeper Casillas. He's won the Euros twice. You know, Buffon never won the Euros. He's won more Champions Leagues. You know, Buffon's never won the Champions League. But the longevity is what does it for me. The fact that he was, he was named the best goalkeeper in the world at the age of 39. He was unbelievable for such a long, long period of time. Let's remember, Casillas was fantastic at a young age, but he quickly fell off in his 30s. Yeah.
I mean, he was finished by 32, 33.
Yeah,
he was
completely finished
at the top level.
Completely finished. Buffon kept it going, like you said, for 28 years. And for 24 of those, he was the best goalkeeper in the world. And that's truly, truly remarkable. And that is why I think, for me, that he is the greatest, the longevity.
And then when you look at his qualities as well, I mean, he was the complete goalkeeper. He had everything. He was an incredible shot stopper. He was perfect in the air. From crosses. I don't think there's ever been anyone was as safe as him as on crosses, the way that he commanded the box. No one's commanded the box, organised the box, organised his defence, positioning, perfect positioning. Perfect positioning. When to come out, how to position himself on angles so that when, he's going at the near post, getting in the right position so that you don't leave too much of your near post open, you don't leave too much of your far post open, narrowing the angle when you're coming up for a one-on-one, exactly where to be positioned. He was perfect. Great communicator from a young age, a great leader, a great example for the others, but also someone that had incredible confidence. We saw that especially when he was young. He was a very, very confident person, confident as a teenager. He changed slightly, became more, a different type of leader, an example to follow when he got older, brave. The only weakness I would say for a while were probably penalties. He wasn't wasn't the best at, but he even got great at them later on in his career as well. And if you look at the number of the record of penalties saved, he's actually right up there at the top as well. And so, I mean, he was the complete goalkeeper. And there's just so many so many special memories. That debut in '95, I remember watching it as well. The saves from Badjo and Weah and Boban, and the way he threw himself. But then I also remember the debut for Italy against Russia in 1997. It was a World Cup playoff against Russia, two-legged playoff. They were playing in Moscow in the first leg, in the snow with an orange ball. The snow was 3 inches deep. It was thick. There was couldn't see any green on the field. Awful, freezing, sub-zero temperatures. Paluca gets injured early on in the game, like 10 minutes into the game. On comes Buffon, 19 years old. And honestly, everybody's thinking the same thing. Everyone's thinking Italy are going out. Italy are not qualifying for the World Cup. You go into Russia in the winter, the deep winter, in those temperatures, with those conditions, with a rookie goalkeeper. Buffon comes in and he's absolutely magnificent in that game. And in Italy, they draw 1-1, and then they end up winning the return leg, and they go to the World Cup. I remember that. So many amazing. The save from Inzaghi in the 2003 Champions League final. I think for me that's his most memorable one. It obviously didn't result in a victory, but I remember Inzaghi's expression when he took the header. I think it was a header, wasn't it? The cross come in, he put it towards the near post, and he thinks he scored, and then Inzaghi's reaction, like kind of like everybody else, like how did he save that? Like what? Like you couldn't believe that Buffon had made that save, and then of course the 2006 World Cup, where he was faultless, conceded 2 goals all tournament. And that was an own goal.
Zaccardo with the most weird old goal I think I've ever seen. And of course that penalty that was barely over the line.
From Zidane in the final. So he basically didn't concede a goal. He wasn't really beaten in the whole tournament.
No, the World Cup final, the Zidane header to me is just insane. What he does there. And in the semi-finals as well, I think it's Schneider who's a fantastic shot.
And Podolski in the extra time as well.
He is. Now, for me, the longevity and above all, for me, a good goalkeeper traditionally, because I think that role is changing now. It's going through a metamorphosis of what the new goalkeepers is. The new goalkeepers are going to be, and I think Mike Mignon is the perfect embodiment of that. But regardless, for me, it's this man's ability to the rebounds. The rebound that he never gave any rebounds, and the ones that he did were always to the side. It was never straight out. He didn't suffer from Handanovic syndrome, as I call it. Great save, straight out. Always, always. That's why I think what will stop Vicario from becoming a really good goalkeeper too. The rebounds are always straight out.
That's part of it, like also his understanding of the game, isn't it? Like he always, he learnt and knew that, that was part of being a goalkeeper is limiting the chances to the opposition. That's why
it's so important, and I think that's why I think Vicario will never be a world-class, top-class goalkeeper. I think he'll be a great goalkeeper, but I know he'll be world-class because the rebounds are too straight out, and with Buffon, you never had that.
And also Buffon, all goalkeepers make mistakes, but Buffon certainly made less mistakes than fewer mistakes than anyone else. Again, you look at Donnarumma, who obviously is phenomenal in what he does good, but Donnarumma is not as complete goalkeeper as Buffon, not even close. He's not as good anywhere close as good on crosses. He makes more mistakes than him, there's been legendary goalkeepers in the past: Yashin, Banks, Sepp Maier, Dino Zoff, of course, Schmeichel, Manuel Neuer, Casillas, who you mentioned before. These are all great goalkeepers, but when you add everything together, including the longevity,
I think Zoff is the only one that comes close because he won everything, Zoff is the only one I think that comes close. To be honest, but it was a different kind of football then. It's difficult to compare eras, but I think for me. Zoff and Buffon are head and shoulders above everyone else.
The only regrets, of course, is that he never won that. The Euros as well, not winning the Euros, and he went close.
But he was
certainly.
unlucky with Italy as well, wasn't he? I mean, the injuries
Yeah.
that prevented him from being the starting goalkeepers in France '98 and Euro 2000.
Well, he wouldn't have been the starter in France '98. He wasn't injured in France '98, but he was injured for
Sorry.
2010.
Yeah.
He was injured, and then obviously 2018 he didn't qualify. But also in 2002, they got cheated in 2002 World Cup by UEFA and the referee.
FIFA,
and then,
not UEFA.
Sorry, FIFA. Yeah, well, same thing. Same thing. It's different mask. Same face, different mask.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
And then 2014, Italy didn't have a good team. But, but I think the big regret is obviously the Champions League. That is a big regret. 3 finals. And that was the one that he really wanted. And I think that's the one that, most kind of neutrals wanted for Buffon himself. That he didn't manage that, but that doesn't stop him becoming the GOAT. So yeah, all the best to Buffon. He's now going to be the new head of delegation of Italy's national teams. He's going to take the job of the late Gianluca Vialli. So let's see if he can. Let's make sure we qualify first. Let's see if he can get win a Euros as a part of the delegation instead. Okay, let's move to the Mercato now, and let's talk about the biggest talking point of the week, and that is Gianluca Scamacca, who seemed destined to Inter. It looked like the deal was it was in a pretty advanced stage. Then Atalanta come in. They come in with a better offer for the club and a better offer for the player, and Scamacca has now. He's going to join Atalanta. 25 million euros up front, 5 million in add-ons. He will earn around 3.2 million euros a season, a 10% sell-on clause. So first of all, let's look at this from Scamacca's point of view. Has he made the right decision joining Atalanta rather than waiting it out? Well,
that's exactly the key here. I think it's important to get the facts straight. This notion that Atalanta outbid Inter is laughable, because if you think that Inter's offer was never accepted, first of all. For Scamacca to choose Inter, West Ham have to accept Inter's offer. They didn't. They accepted Atalanta's offer. And second of all, if you think that Inter can't afford 30 million overall value for Scamacca, but somehow they can manage to pay 35 for Balogun, well, then you maybe need to go back to school and learn how arithmetic works. So it's quite clear that Inter didn't feel that Scamacca was worth that money, and they weren't as keen on him. And we know, I mean, this is not a secret. Scamacca was the compromise candidate for Inter. Inter's directors, ownership, says Zhang, Marotta, Ausilio want Balogun, Inzaghi wanted Morata, and they compromised on Scamacca, and they made an offer which they thought was fair to both player and to the club and the player. West Ham accepted Atalanta's offer. Inter decided not to relaunch because they don't want to participate in, as Marotta always says, Inter doesn't participate in auctioning bids, in auctions, and they didn't do that. They didn't want that. So they it's not. And I understand that it's a very sexy thing to go with, Inter beffa, Inter got overtaken by Atalanta. It's a sexy media thing. It creates lots of, clicks and lots of interactions on social media, and people obviously make money off of that nowadays on Twitter and elsewhere. So I get that, but if we're sticking to the facts entirely, the facts are Atalanta made an offer, West Ham accepted it. Inter made an offer, they didn't accept it. And the player decided that he knew he was going to be first choice at Atalanta. He wasn't going to be first choice at Inter because you got Marcos Thuram, you got Lautaro. So I think for him, he wanted to play, he wanted to get back into it, and it just made sense for Scamacca to do that. I think it's risky because Inter fans, myself included, we wanted Scamacca. I wanted that profile. I personally I'm very skeptical of the Balogun thing. I think he's one good season in France. You know what kind of striker he is. He's a fox in the box kind of striker. I can't remember who it was, if it was Rio Ferdinand who likened him to, or was it Martin Keown, who likened Balogun to Ian Wright, which I think is a fair comparison. And I wanted a different profile, but Inter's directors did not. And that's just how it is. So I personally think Inter are risking it a little bit here. If they don't get Balogun, they're screwed because, with all due respect to Beto, he's nowhere near the class that a player that Inter needs to be at. Of a player that's good enough to play for Inter. I'm sorry, he's just not. It's another Correa situation again. As much as I love Beto, he was on the podcast, lovely guy, lovely, fantastic, lovely person, but he's just not good enough to play at Inter. So I think they're risking it a little bit, but it seems that Balogun has got his head completely made up for Inter.
Okay, well, let's talk about Scamacca first. Let's talk about Scamacca now. So, is this a good move for him to relaunch?
I think so.
To relaunch his career,
because he becomes the marquee signing at Atalanta. He becomes the focal point at Atalanta. He becomes the guy who Gasperini is going to build around. Everything will go through him, and I think that's what he wants. And I think that's the kind of player he needs to be. You know, he's the kind of character that if you're going to get the most out of him, you need to make him the focal point of the attack. He's physically a monster. He's big as hell. He's strong, but he's also technical. He knows how to play with his back against the goal. He's a good player. Link up. He can create something out of nothing. And he'll play for a team that will attack a lot, so he will see a lot of the ball. I think it's a great signing for him. I think it's a great move for Atalanta. Again, at Inter, he would have been the third striker behind Thuram and Lautaro, or competing with them for a starting spot. Here, he is the indisputable number one.
I'm torn. I'm a little bit torn because I'm feeling like Scamacca. What is he? 25. He's going to be 25 soon. He's not a young kid now,
Nope.
and I feel like if I looked at where Scamacca was when he was coming through 2-3 years ago, I would have been expected him to play for a bigger club, with all due respect, than Atalanta now. And yes, of course, he had a bad year at West Ham. We'll come to that in a second, but I feel like playing for Atalanta. I mean, should he have pushed more for the Inter move and seen to if he could have made that move happen? Because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he will do well at Atalanta. I'm sure he will do well, but I'm looking at this through the lens of the Italy national team. I want to see Italy's best players playing for the biggest clubs and playing in the Champions League, and whether Atalanta are going to allow him to increase his level. I mean, of course, he's still young enough. He could stay at Atalanta for a year, 2 years, and then make the move to one of the giants of Italian football. But I guess, maybe I'm a little bit disappointed at looking at the trajectory of Scamacca, that here we are where he's had the choice, the opportunity potentially to join one of the bigger clubs, even after a bad season at West Ham, and he's settled with and accepted to join Atalanta. I
think this is a statement signing by Atalanta. I think
for Atalanta's point of view, it's fantastic. I mean, you can even say, as we discussed so many times on this show, with Napoli winning the Scudetto last season, 4 different winners, could Atalanta even potentially be a dark horse?
I think Atalanta are a dark horse.
They bought Scamacca, they bought El Bilal Toure, who was their record signing, but Scamacca now may overtake that if you include the add-ons. They've spent that money with the Højlund money. De Ketelaere will come to in a bit as well. I mean, Scamacca and Toure could play together in attack in a 3-4-1-2, or they play other systems. They've got lots of options now in attack. There's lots of goals in the team. So for Atalanta, it's fantastic.
I think it's a brilliant signing by Atalanta, and I think it's good for the Serie A that you don't have like we've spoken. The Serie A is this tight and this exciting because no team has the financial muscles to hoard all the talent up, to hoover them all up, and they're all spread around. And Atalanta are, as we discussed for the last 2 weeks and for 2 years now, they are pound for pound the best run club in the world. It's a small provincial side from Bergamo that continues to find talent, develop, and know how to sell. And they've competed in Europe. They've been in the Champions League. And I think they're rebuilding now. And with Gasperini, the talent that they've got in terms of firepower up front, they absolutely can be a side that challenge that can finish in the top 4. And maybe if all goes well, if the stars align, they could even, they could be a dark horse for the Serie A title for sure.
Definitely challenge the top 4. I mean, I think the race for top 4 is
so tight,
guaranteed to be so tight again next season. After this, and I mean, Why it didn't work out at West Ham? I mean, I think that's a very easy question to answer. I
Just
think
go listen to our podcast
predict,
last year when we
yeah,
discussed why it wouldn't work out at West Ham.
yeah. And to be honest with you, I absolutely agree with him sacking his agent for making that move happen, because that is terrible career management from his agent. Who was his agent, by the way?
I can't remember who it was.
Whoever his agent was, or his agency, terrible career management.
But it's not just but at the end of the day,
you lack I mean, yes, he can accept it, but some footballers are not the smartest. This guy comes from a background where hasn't had a very privileged upbringing and education.
No, he's had a very horrible.
He's had a very difficult upbringing. Yeah. This is where you need people that work in your best interests, and whoever was working was not working in his best interest. They were looking at the money. They were looked at the wages, the Premier League move. And it was not, and he's absolutely right to have sacked them, because it was a terrible move, and anybody with any understanding of football could see that it was not going to work out at West Ham.
Literally everybody knew.
With defensive football, counter-attacking football, a manager who, the Scottish Allegri, as I call him, who doesn't get the best out of young attackers at all. He cannot develop attackers or develop attacking players, or just rely on. And I mean, Mikel Antonio, his former teammate, said it himself. Scamacca is a great player, but West Ham doesn't suit him because, and I quote, he is feeding off scraps.
No, as a striker, he said, as a striker, you feed off of scraps when you play for Moyes. It's that's what he said on that podcast, and that's his teammate, and that's why I didn't want him to go to West Ham. I didn't think that football would suit him. I think he would have used him in he's a big guy, but he's not that striker. Like,
it's not good for any young attacker when you play for a manager like Moyes, or a manager that. No,
I think someone like Petagna would have been perfect for Moyes, because he's big. He's an oaf. He doesn't know how to. He's not very good with his feet. He's just like a Jan Koller. Like, that's the kind of striker that he likes. And Petagna is that kind of guy. He's not very technical. He doesn't know how to move properly. He's slow. That's the kind of strikers that David Moyes like. But Scamacca is big, but he's not that striker.
We just hope that he can resurrect himself, though, because at that age, it's you lose a year in your developmental key age like that. But
let's remember also that he did play with an injured meniscus all of last year, and he finally had that surgery. And I think the reason why he went to Atalanta is also because I don't see another Premier League club or a Real Madrid or a PSG or anyone else coming in for Scamacca in 1 or 2 years' time. I think. If the difference is, had he gone to Inter, then that's it. He stays at Inter. But his chances of fulfilling his dream of going to Roma are much bigger if he goes to Atalanta than if he goes to Inter, for sure. And I think that's his goal. He wants to play for Roma at some point in his career, and I think the next club that he goes to will be that. Unless he has one of these crazy breakout seasons and really becomes the new Italian Ibrahimovic, and you have the biggest top creme de la creme clubs in the world fighting out for him.
Well, the pitch will decide, as they say. So Inter go for Balogun now. Is that what
Balogun's
you see?
Been the number one target all along for the management directors, and it's personally, I don't think tactically, it's not my choice. He's more of a Ciro Immobile than he is of a Romelu Lukaku, and I think that I would have rather have gone for a similar profile to Lukaku, given how well it looked when things clicked last season. But they want, if you look at it from their perspective, he's a young player. But above all, it's not just that he's, people say it's because he's American and he'll help market. Inter don't think about stuff like that. They don't understand marketing. Just go look at their social media content and you'll understand that Inter they're not, the marketing aspect of things is not what decides things at that club. What does decide things is the fact that it's finances. And Balogun is a solid investment because he's young. He is American, yes, but he's also English homegrown. Remember that he played for England. He grew up, he counts as a homegrown player for the Premier League, which means, and we all know that means money in. That at some point over the next 2-3 years, Inter can cash in big on this guy. If he has a good career, they'll get, at the very least, they'll get the return on their investment, unless they'll get their investment back unless he injures himself seriously, like Tammy Abraham has done, unfortunately, at Roma. But they're looking for options, different options. I mean, you got Lautaro, who's a 9.5. You have Thuram, who's more like Dzeko. You have if you bring this guy in, you have a striker that gets in around the back and is more of a finisher in the box. I think Martin Keown's comparison to Ian Wright is pretty spot on. And then you have Joaquin Correa, and if he leaves, they're looking at Alexis Sanchez on a free. So you can see the different profiles that they're looking for. That they want to have different options for different games. To me, that suggests they want to compete on all fronts. When you do that, the midfield definitely suggests that. The wing back suggests that. So that's what I feel when I watch this. When I think of Balogun. But I mean, like you said, the pitch will decide. I think Balogun, but then again, it's also risky because if you miss out on Balogun, you're screwed. You're screwed. And I don't like it when Inter put all their eggs in one basket.
No, yeah, well, we'll see how that develops. One thing is for sure that Inter finally have a goalkeeper now, Yann Sommer. Medical on Monday, I believe. As I've seen many Inter fans say, it's gone on for so long that Sommer almost became winter. But they do finally have Yann Sommer in the summer. So 6 million, are you happy with this deal? And also, can you just answer, what is going to happen with the backup? Because I see Trubin is probably going to Benfica. Yeah. So are Inter going to sign another goalkeeper? I mean, they surely still need a backup goalkeeper.
They do need a backup goalkeeper, and I think there could be a solution between Audero and Stankovic. But we got to be honest here. Stankovic is impressed in pre-season, and it wouldn't harm, like Inter are seriously considering keeping him as a second goalkeeper. I don't want that to happen for his sake because he's a young goalkeeper. He spent 2 seasons on loan in the Dutch first and second division in Volendam, and he did really well there. And I want him to continue playing, and sitting on the bench at Inter does not exactly help him grow. A goalkeeper needs minutes more than any position, to be honest. And I think so. But I really hope that they send him out on loan so he can play, and because he needs to grow. I really believe in him. I mean, nothing would be better for Inter than Stankovic to become, another Stankovic at Inter, a goalkeeper, a young goalkeeper at that. It would really be the stuff of dreams. He grew up at the club, so that would be absolutely fantastic for Inter if that happens. But in order for that to happen, he needs to play, and I don't think he. So I hope that they do this loan swap deal with Sampdoria that is being talked about. Just for a season to allow Stankovic to continue growing in the Serie B. But no, Trubin, I think it seems, I mean, when Benfica walks in and gives you, I mean, essentially it's a co-ownership, if we're honest. They're giving 40-45% of the future sell-on fee to Shakhtar. I mean, that's as close as you can get to a co-ownership deal almost. So, the backup situation doesn't matter. What matters is that Yann Sommer is in Milan. Inter finally got the player, and the fact that he played with Marcus Thuram, it makes sense. They played together at Gladbach. They linked up really well at Gladbach, and I think that's a link up that Inter fans should look out for. Everyone should be looking at, because I think that's something. Given how Sommer plays with his feet and the balls that he hits high up the pitch directly to Thuram, that's a link up that Inzaghi will use a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and just before we finish off on Atalanta, Charles De Ketelaere is set for Atalanta. They've agreed to sign him on a loan deal, 1-year loan deal, probably about 3 million, with a buy option attached of around 22 million, with add-ons, about 4 to 5 million in add-ons on top of that, and then a 10% future resale clause as well. It looks like this is going to happen. We're recording on Monday. This will happen either Monday or Tuesday, it looks like. So the big question is, can he resurrect his career at Atalanta?
I think he can. I think this is the perfect move for him. I think the step up from Club Brugge to Milan was too big. Obviously, Milan underwent changes. Pioli doesn't seem to really believe in him. This is the ideal solution. I think Atalanta, and the way that the deal is structured as well, it's a 22 million option, not an obligation. It's an option, isn't it? And that suggests that they're they're hedging their bets. If he were to be a dud, then they just send him back to Milan But if he's a star, they'll buy him for 22 and then they can flog him on for 40, 50, 60, 70, as they seem to be able to do quite easily. And he's from Belgium. He's young. No, it's a great deal for Atalanta, and I hope for him as well. I think he will do well there. I really think it's a smaller place. It's not as much pressure as around Milan. You know, he'll be in a more familial environment as Bergamo. I think this is for me. It ticks every box, and I think that the fact that he's got Scamacca in front of him, I think that attack is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think it's for Atalanta's point of view. I think it's a risk that's worth taking. The risk versus reward is in Atalanta's favour, because if he is a flop, then they've lost 3 million, and it's not the end of the world. Especially having made so much money on the Rasmus Højlund deal. If it's a success, then that's fantastic. He has a good season with them. They sign him. They can keep him for another season, or they can sell him on at a big profit. So I think the risk versus reward, I think it's a risk worth taking for Atalanta. Nothing that I've seen from De Ketelaere in the last year, either for Milan, or I watched him in the under 21 Euros as well for Belgium. Nothing suggests to me in that he's going to be a success, even for Atalanta. I've seen nothing at all. I have to be honest with you. But you know, he's obviously got a great left foot, and obviously he was wanted by so many. I didn't watch him much before he joined Milan, so I can't go on that. But I think one thing I do think that the formation should suit him at Atalanta, because they play a kind of a 3-4-1-2 / 3-4-2-1. And I think that's where he needs to play. He needs to play in that hole behind the striker or strikers. And I think this system will suit him perfectly. He's not an outside winger, that's for sure. He doesn't have the pace for it. He likes to just roam around, kind of picking up the ball on the edge of the box. He's good in those kind of little areas. So I think that the formation will suit him, and he'll also be in a clear system. And we've seen it so many times at Atalanta that the Gasperini system, if you can get adjusted to it and adapt to it, he can make everyone. He can maximize everyone. And there's obviously, you can see there's clear talents. You can see he's got a lovely left foot. He's graceful. He's got elegance. Why not? Why can't Gasperini make him the new Ilicic, for example? They're not too dissimilar. So yeah, let's see what happens. I think it's a risk worth taking. From the Milan point of view, there's no doubt he's one of the biggest bidoni we've ever seen in Serie A.
He's one of the worst signings Milan have ever done. I mean, but given that he's leaving now, there's no doubt that it's that's probably Maldini's, Maldini and Massara's biggest X on the
probably
record.
What done Maldini in. Yeah, to be honest with you.
Could be.
It's what ended him, really, because I think it was this deal that really finished him off, I think. Obviously, there were other issues, but, they went for him over... who was it they chose? It's Dybala, wasn't it? Yeah. Paulo Dybala. Yeah. It was Paulo Dybala that, they had the deal done for Paulo Dybala. And we were told that by Vito Angela when he came on to do the Milan Deep Dive podcast earlier in the summer. And he said, and I asked him, why was Maldini sacked? And, he said that Milan had done a deal, the Milan management had done a deal for Dybala, but Maldini insisted for De Ketelaere instead at a cost of, 40 million. So, yeah, absolutely. He was a total disaster. I think, what was it? One assist and 0 goals in 40 appearances. And just somebody that looked very low in confidence, no personality, no intensity, just weak on the ball, pushed off the ball. Let's see if he can resurrect his career at Atalanta.
I think so. I think he'll do well there, and I think Atalanta's firepower is going to be very interesting. I think they're going to.
Yeah, we have to see if players leave, because they're going to have to sell players. I mean, Zapata, Muriel, Lookman. I mean, they've all been. I mean, I'm sure Atalanta will try and get rid of the first two, but even Lookman's been linked with an exit. Boga's already gone, so there's a lot of change.
Yeah, no, they're changing. It's a summer of change in the Serie A, isn't it? It really is a summer of change in all clubs.
Yeah, for sure. Talking about changing clubs, the Dusan Vlahovic, Romelu Lukaku swap negotiations will really get into it this week. I think this will be the key week in deciding if Vlahovic and Lukaku swap Juventus and Chelsea. Juventus want 50 million plus Lukaku for Vlahovic, but will settle for 40. Chelsea's starting point is very low, maybe even as low as 20 plus Lukaku for Vlahovic. So there is a big bridge there that needs to come to some kind of compromise. The next, I think, 48, 72 hours, I think we'll get a clear picture whether this is a deal that is going to go through. But what I want us to discuss today is I want us to look at the winners and losers of this deal if it does go through. So I want to go through each party. First of all, Romelu Lukaku, if he goes to Juventus, is he a winner or is he a loser?
I don't know what to even begin to talk about what Lukaku. The man, his decision making in the career moves. The only good career move he made was going to Inter under Conte. That was the only one that made sense, and he was fantastic. He was the peak of his career. But since then, going to Chelsea, doing that interview when he was at Chelsea 3 months in, burning his bridges completely with Chelsea after 3 months of being their record signing, then going to Inter on loan, failing, flopping, and then doing this. If he goes to Juve, he will become the biggest traitor for Inter fans in Inter's modern history. He will be the biggest Judas to Inter fans, no doubt about it. He will be hated to the point where I can't even begin to describe how much hatred he will bring up, because he was a player who professed his love to Inter. He was a player who professed that he always wanted to play for Inter. Adriano was my childhood idol, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes and does all this stuff. I don't know. Do I think he will work in an Allegri system at Juve? Yes, I actually think so. I don't think he'll ever be the striker he was under Antonio Conte. But do I think he'll score 15, 20 goals in the Serie A and maybe even win the Serie A with Juve playing for Allegri? Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe that's how he looks at it, short term, getting back into it, being the main guy. And we know that Lukaku needs to be the main guy everywhere he goes. At Inter, he's no longer the main guy. The main guy is Lautaro Martinez.
I find it. We've spoken about this at length before. From Lukaku's point of view, I do find it a bit strange. Also, because Juventus are not in the Champions League either. But maybe he's been promised that Antonio Conte is going to be there in a year. Maybe there's that dynamic to it as well. Maybe in his own mind, he sees this as revenge against Inter because he's unhappy about how last season went for whatever reason, not playing in the starting the Champions League final, all that kind of stuff. Maybe in his own mind, that's what he thinks. But time will tell. From Dusan Vlahovic's point of view, I think it's a risk from Vlahovic's point of view. In terms of, for starters, he leaves Juventus, then that concedes that his time at Juventus was a failure. That this will be looked at as a failure in his career. His move to Juventus was a failure. So that's bad on his resume there. The risk is also risky because Chelsea are a mess. The club is a total mess. Their transfer market over the last year has been laughable. I don't think it's been much better this window. They've sold a lot of players and made good money, but again, the players they've brought in, it just looks haphazard and chaotic, and you can't really see much of a method in terms of what they're trying to build there. So he's coming into a very disjointed team who, even with Vlahovic in the team, I don't see Chelsea qualifying for the top four. We have to see who else comes in this window. If they bring in Caicedo and they bring in some other players, and maybe they can, but I think it's going to be difficult for them to even get in the top four. They're definitely not going to challenge for the title. They're not going to be in the Champions League. So, he's going to a club that's almost in as much of a mess as Juventus, well, obviously with infinitely more resources. On a positive, though, point of view, I think he's working for a manager who's very good at developing young players, Pochettino, who we saw what he did to Harry Kane, who was a similar age when Pochettino started working with him as Vlahovic is now. So that could be good for Vlahovic's career, that he's got a manager that can develop young attackers, which obviously Allegri can't do. So I think I think that's good. If we move on to Juventus, though, is this a good move? Is this a Juventus a winner or a loser bringing in Lukaku?
For Juve, I think it makes perfect sense because they get a player who will probably cost them less in wages because I think they can use the Decreta Crescita for another year.
Mm-hmm.
They get 30-40 million euros in cash, and they move a Vlahovic who's not working, and it's just, for them it makes perfect sense financially. And they have to make money. Juve have to offload players, and they have to start bringing in cash. It's as simple as that. So I don't think Juve have much of a choice here. So for them, it's good from that aspect. Also, I think this is a guy who works for them tactically in terms of Allegri, and if Conte comes in, Conte as well. So, again, Lukaku, Juve need to get back into the Champions League first of all. That's the goal. And will Lukaku help them achieve that goal? Absolutely, I think so, without a doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that Juve will finish top 4 next season. And I think Lukaku almost guarantees that. Because the way that he plays, he is a striker who will get those 15-20 goals against your Lecces, against your Empolis, against your Monzas, the unsexy goals, but they all mean 3 points. And Juve have only the Coppa Italia and the Serie A to play in. So for Juve, it makes perfect sense. And Allegri will make him the main guy. And I also think that, given that we know that Lukaku can play with his back against the goal, his link-up play is good. I think that'll also be good for Chiesa as well. I think that'll really get Chiesa firing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we're looking at it in the short term gain for Juventus could be good because they're bringing in a player that doesn't need to be developed. He's ready, and again, we've talked it to death about Allegri. Allegri needs ready-made, especially in attack, needs ready-made players because he can't develop players. So that's a positive. But from a mid to long-term move from Juventus, it makes no sense, as we've discussed. I mean, Allegri could leave next year for starters. Financially, you're bringing in a player for a lot of money. You're relinquishing a player that's 23 that has a big sell-on value. For someone that's got no sell-on value and you won't be able to sell him, and you're bringing a player who's 30 years old and is going to decline in 1-2 years, versus a player who, if he was developed correctly, could be playing for Juventus for 5, 8, 10 years. So it doesn't. Again, it smacks of short-termism and the whole thing that I've been complaining about with Juventus for a good 4 to 5 years, and that there's been no project in terms of building a core of a team around a group of players who can be together for a period of time. And this is another short-term signing. The positive for me is that, yes, of course, they do need to make money. We know that. But the biggest positive is that if Vlahovic leaves, Chiesa definitely stays.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, who do I want to stay at Juventus out of Vlahovic and Chiesa, it's probably Chiesa.
Yeah.
So, they have to make a sacrifice.
I think just from a Vlahovic point of view, I think this is good for him. I think Pochettino is the perfect... If Pochettino can't get Vlahovic to become a striker that knows how to play with his back against the goal, I don't think anyone can. Then that's it for him at a big club. Because at big clubs, you have to be able to play with your back against the goal. And Vlahovic is yet to do that. But we've seen what Pochettino... how good he is at developing young players. I mean, you saw what Dele Alli said of Pochettino about how his relationship with him, he was almost like a second father to him. And I think, Pochettino is, I think that really speaks good for volumes for Vlahovic, that he can really develop under Pochettino if he puts his mind to it. And, fresh start, it's the Premier League, it's the biggest stage in the world. Chelsea are a big club. Pochettino is great at developing young players. He's also someone who understands the human and the person behind the player, which I think is very important too. So I think for Vlahovic, I get it. I really do.
Yeah. And for Serie A, for Chelsea, first of all, I think it's a risk for Chelsea as well. I mean, financially, it's good in that they get Lukaku off their books and they're investing in a young player with a sell-on value. But it's a risk in that, we've seen from Vlahovic in the last 18 months, what we've seen. So, of course, you're always taking a risk when you're bringing in a player who's been playing badly for a long period of time. And also, given that Chelsea really do need a number 9.
They really do.
They really do. I mean, they've got Nicholas Jackson. He's been doing well in pre-season, but, they need a guarantee. Vlahovic, he's probably not a guarantee. So, it's a risk. It's a risk, and there's always a risk. I think from a Serie A point of view, again, it's probably not a good look for Serie A PR-wise, in that, again, we're losing another young star for let's be honest, for an EPL, for a Premier League cast-off. So I don't think it's good.
Yeah, he's a Chelsea reject. There's no doubt about that. There's a Premier League reject, absolutely. So
so I don't think it's a good look. The whole image that Serie A has of
But don't worry, DJ Khaled on Instagram will fix that. Don't worry. A few more. If you get the Kardashians on Instagram and TikTok, and you're sorted. That seems to be the level that the Serie A is doing.
Conquering North America, according to the marketing geniuses in Serie A. Right, okay. Just very, very quickly, staying on Juventus, so we're going over as usual. Donnarumma. So this is a story that Sport Italia and Alfredo Pedula have said that there's been an exploratory inquiry for Donnarumma from Juventus. We know that the situation at PSG is not good at the moment. A horrific robbery that took place where him and his girlfriend were held at gunpoint in their home. So that's obviously not helped matters. There was some fake news going around that Luis Enrique wanted to sell Donnarumma.
Yeah.
Now, that probably is fake news, but I have no doubt whatsoever. I can see an issue coming here with Luis Enrique, because we know Luis Enrique wants players to be able to, wants goalkeepers who are good with their feet. It's crucial to his way of playing, and we know Donnarumma is not good with his feet, and he's never going to be suitable to Luis Enrique. So I can see, might not be now, but 6 months down the line, I can see this being a potential problem. So I don't see it happening this summer, Donnarumma to Juventus, but end of next year, end of next season, if Luis Enrique is going to stay, and that's no guarantee either. If they get knocked out of the Champions League, El Khalifi might have rid of Luis Enrique as well. I do think this is one to keep an eye on. Szczesny's contract expires in 2025. What do you think?
I think I've always thought that at some point Donnarumma will go to Juve. And I think Sandro Tonali will join him in a couple of years' time as well. I think that's the... At some point, I expect Tonali and Donnarumma to go to Juve. And I think within a year or two, I think Donnarumma will go. And maybe a couple of years later, 1 or 2 years after that, Tonali will join. I think that's the strategy. I mean, Juve are building around. They're all going Italian, aren't they? The Milans or the Inter and Juve are really going with their Italian core. And Donnarumma and Tonali are going to be mainstays in the Italian national team. And I expect Donnarumma he's not going to, the next step from PSG, if he wants to take a step upwards, would be if he went to Man City or Real Madrid or something like that. And that's just not going to happen because he's not that character. And I think Juve would be a safe place. It would secure him playing at a top level. It would be good for the Italian national team. Juve, we know how good they are at protecting players and their families and making everyone happy. And he'll fold in line, I'm sure, as well. So, no, for me, it's just a matter of time before Donnarumma and Tonali end up at Juve, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned for Donnarumma under Luis Enrique. But, you know what, I don't really like the work I'm a big fan of Luis Enrique as a coach. I think he's fantastic, and it's a great appointment by PSG. But I don't like the transfer work of PSG this summer. I mean, Messi's gone. And if Mbappe, the situation's a total farce there, even if he stays, it's a total shambles there. So you lose Messi, you lose Mbappe, potentially lose Verratti as well. The signings that have come in, they don't, certainly from the midfield going forward. Dembele, okay, I like him, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's a lot of uncertainty, and it doesn't seem like a very stable environment at the moment, PSG.
No, it doesn't.
Talking about stability, Gaetano Castrovilli's
No. I'm not letting you off the hook. You're reacting to Weston McKennie staying at Juve. I'm not. No. Don't you try to smooth talk your way out of this. I want to hear you react to Weston McKennie staying at Juve. Please
What do you want me
proceed.
to say? What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Do you want me to shoot myself live on the podcast?
No,
Like I
I
said,
think we should acknowledge that he was good in the friendly against Real
Oh,
Madrid.
fantastic! He was good in a couple of friendlies in pre-season tournament in the United States. I mean, wow, whoopee!
I think we should acknowledge that Juve played really well in that game. I don't care about the result, but I think the way that Juve played against Real Madrid, they looked really good. And it looks like things, based on what we've seen on the pitch so far.
Okay, you know what? I take back everything that I've said about McKennie. Everything that we've seen from McKennie in the last 3 or 4 years. These 2 games in pre-season... These 2 games in pre-season show that I was wrong and that Weston McKennie is a world-class midfielder and he's going to have a fantastic season for Juventus next season. There we go. Are you happy?
Oh, my God. Oh, days. No, but I know that people listening, I will be very happy. No, but seriously, do you think he'll stay at Juve?
Well, what I understand is that he was obviously for sale at the start of the summer. But he's played really well in these 2 games, and that now Juventus are reflecting on his future.
Don't you think that he has a role to play at Juve as a rotation player like Rabiot?
No, you're winding me up now. No, he's not. He's not. No, he's not Juventus quality. He's way off Juventus quality, miles off. It doesn't matter if you play well in a preseason. Friendlies are friendlies.
Yeah, I know.
And he's a fit player. He's very fit. When he gets himself in shape, he might like a burger, but he's somebody that runs, he's athletic. With ranch sauce on it, he can get up and down. I'll tell you a Bedford story, right?
Yes.
When I was playing for a pre-season. I was playing for a team before I made my final retirement. I was playing for a team about 15 years ago. It wasn't the best team in the world. He didn't have the best players, best coach. It wasn't a great team. But in pre-season, we won every single game. We hammered everyone because we got so super fit. We were so far ahead in terms of fitness. We started training in June.
Yeah.
I remember the World Cup was on. It was during 2010 World Cup. And we started training. We were so super fit that we just were beating everyone. And even we had some really crap players. They were scoring, they were playing well because they were just fitter and sharper than everyone else. Yeah. And in pre-season, sometimes you can get some players like that that can look really good in pre-season because they're just so much sharper than everyone else. So I don't know if that's the case with McKennie, but I mean, just watching for Leeds last season. Ask Leeds fans. Honestly, Leeds, you think I get
No. Leeds
McKennie.
fans, I saw online, they were, oh my days.
Honestly, Weston McKennie is the most unwelcome person in Leeds.
I think so as well. I saw that. I saw what happened on social media. At Leeds fans, I don't think I've ever seen that much hatred towards
They
him.
Absolutely detest him. Honestly, they make me look like
they do.
I'm a super fan.
Yeah, they do. They were not very. There was one space on Twitter that they had. I think it was with McKennie's friends. And one Leeds fan went after McKennie. It was very, very, very funny.
Well, they were chanting him. Do you remember the last game of the season when Leeds got relegated? And then some of the Leeds players kind of went to clap towards the fans, and McKennie kind of half went over, and they just laid into him. They were calling him a fat bastard, and
they
piss off back to America. And,
it was horrible. It was really, really. The abuse was crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, right, okay. Enough of McKennie. I want to get your take on Castrovilli because I was a little bit concerned about this because first of all, the news came out that Gaetano Castrovilli was joining Bournemouth, and the deal had been done, 12 million plus add-ons, and I thought to myself, at first I was kind of depressed about this because I thought 12 million, and he's going to Bournemouth. And I'm a big fan of Castrovilli as a player. I love watching him play. I think he's a super talent. Obviously, very unlucky with the ACL that he had, that he's just come back from towards the end of last season. And I was really depressed. I was thinking, this kind of just sums up the state of modern football. Really talented Italian player for one of the better Serie A clubs, and he's going to Bournemouth in the Premier League. And then the news came out that the deal had collapsed. He'd failed his medical. And then I was even more depressed because I learned that it was because there's concerns over his knee, the ACL, MCL, and meniscus surgery that he had last year. Bournemouth are concerned about the state of his knee. And then I thought to myself, well, were Fiorentina actually just selling him because they know something that they're not sure about his fitness going forward, long-term fitness?
When we had Nicolo Missoula on, he said that, Fiorentina, he's not going to extend his contract. They've mismanaged that situation. He doesn't want to extend his contract with Fiorentina, or he's asking for wages that Fiorentina can't really afford. And he wants to see out that contract. And so the 12 million plus add-on fee from Bournemouth was a blessing from above for them. Now I think Fiorentina are going to lose him on a free transfer. And I think we'll see who will go after him, of course. But we know that Inter have been interested in this player for many, many years. It's like Inter fans joke online about Ausilio and Marotta's list. It's like an exclusive club. Once you make the list, you're always in there. And the list rarely gets updated. It's very difficult to get thrown out of the list. It's like you have to do something like Lukaku to get thrown out of the club. Castrovilli made the club, the list, a few years ago, and he's been there since. His contract expires next year, and I think if with Amrabat gone, and I think he will have his minutes, and I think he will. I hope that he does well because he's a player I really, really like when I first saw him. And I rate him just like you do.
I hope it is due to the contract thing and it isn't. I mean, obviously, he's failed a medical. So if you fail a medical, you fail a medical. That's always a concern.
Yeah.
Because there's always worries when you come back from ACL, MCL, and meniscus.
It's not, I think the medical thing is a little bit harsh. It's more like the doctor makes his assessment based on the medical if the risk of injury and so on. And I think Bournemouth's doctor made or whoever they used, made the assessment that there's a risk of him of a recurring injury for his knee and so on. At this point, different doctors can have different opinions on
it's
that.
Not good. It's not good for Fiorentina this either because there's no way they're going to sell him.
No, he's not going to be sold to the Premier League. That's for sure.
Well, no, but no one else is going to come in and pay money for him now, knowing that he's failed a medical and there's concerns over his knee. It's just not. It's not going to happen.
No.
So
this is something for him. It's more an issue of. If he stays and
I actually think it's bad in a way. I guess it's good to be open and honest, but I think it's bad that they kind of made this public about. Not that they made it come, but it was leaked, obviously, that he failed a medical, rather than just deal collapsed and that's it. Because I think it is bad for Fiorentina now. That's a damage. They've really. That's really has. He's going to have to stay. Fiorentina are going to have to try him again. And when does this contract run out? Is it the end of next season?
Yeah, I think June 2024. Yeah.
Okay, well, they're going to lose him for nothing.
No, they got. That's what Nicolo Missoula said when we did the Fiorentina deep dive. That there was a concern at Fiorentina about Castrovilli that they might have botched that a little bit. But at the same time, we'll see what happens. If he has a good, do Fiorentina play him? I think they might have to. Because a fit Castrovilli, I think, walks into the Fiorentina midfield.
Absolutely.
Without Amrabat there especially. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I hope he can stay fit because, again, it's a player that looked good for the future of the Italian national team.
No, he's passed as a bit of a Billy Elliot, wasn't he? Ballet dancer as a youngster. And that's where he gets his twinkle toes and his great low centre of gravity when he moves with the ball. So, he's very fantastic, quick feet. Okay, right. Napoli finally have a replacement for Kim Min-jae.
Yeah.
They bought a completely unknown quantity for most Europeans. Natan, I think I pronounced that right, from Red Bull Bragantino. That's the Red Bull club in Brazil. 22 years old, tall, 6'2", left-sided left centre-back, can also play at left-back. Good with the ball, good ball carrier, physical, aggressive. Roma tried to sign him last year. Time will tell.
If Napoli have done another brilliant, discovery once again.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't really add much. We can't really add much on this. We haven't seen too much.
But it's going to be interesting to see. There's been talk of Rudy Garcia played Raspadori in some sort of a double pivot the other day, and It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there.
Oh God, he started.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I personally think that's insane.
Well, Napoli need midfielders. They need central midfielders desperately because they were already short on central midfielders. They've obviously lost Ndombele, and now Garcia has admitted that Zelensky is in negotiations to go to Saudi Arabia. They need to sign at least one, probably two central midfielders.
They do.
Napoli. So there's work to do there. Talking of Brazilians, Roger Ibañez, Roma are in negotiations to sell him to Saudi Arabia for Al Ahly. 25 million plus 10 million as bonuses. I think this will be a really good deal for Roma because
it's a fantastic deal.
They already have a replacement in Dika who was a free transfer. So that's a fantastic profit that they get a player who's going to should be an upgrade. Good for Ibañez financially as well. It gets 10 million a year. It's just insane the money they're paying there. They now have the money to actually invest in the market. They've basically not been able to sign anyone. Kind of it's a shame, I guess, because they need a striker that they didn't get this money in time for.
Scamacca.
To get
Scamacca, yeah. It's a bit of a If he'd only waited, hadn't he? I mean, that's the thing with Scamacca. If he'd only waited a little bit longer. But maybe they decide. I mean, maybe they go for Morata because Alvaro Morata is who Mourinho really wants, but it doesn't seem like that's the kind of player they're going to go after, to be honest. We'll see. But they definitely need a striker, that's for damn sure. And they'll probably need to buy maybe another midfielder as well. But we'll see.
All right, just before we do Bad Joe and Prem Face for the week, finishing off also on Saudi Arabia. So Marco Verratti could join Al Hilal. He's already agreed personal terms with Al Hilal for a contract until 2026, almost 50 million euros a year. Insane. And the Saudi club Al Hilal are now looking to offer around 50 million to PSG. PSG are asking for closer to 80 to sell. So obviously there's a bit of a gap there. Verratti has agreed to join, but he's also not going to kick up a fuss. So this is one that could go either way. But I mean, this is an interesting one now that we're seeing all the players that are going to Saudi Arabia. From an Italy national team point of view, is this the end of Verratti's international career if he goes to Saudi Arabia? Or do you think Mancini will and should still be looking to call him, looking ahead to the Euros?
I think he will continue to call him. I think it's, at least for
Should he though?
Yes.
I mean, should Saudi Arabia be seen as a league that is a high enough quality that you can stay in the national team?
Well, I think it depends on the player in question and the situation. I mean, I've been on my opinion. I think Verratti's kind of on the decline, and has been for 1 or 2 years. So I'm actually looking at this as a kind of a blessing in disguise for Italy. I think Italy need to move away from Verratti and Jorginho. I think they need to start looking to the future. I think Verratti and Jorginho were fantastic players. One of generational players who won Italy the Euros, and we all saw what they can do. But I think it's time to move on, and I think that Verratti and Jorginho, time waits for no man, and I think maybe this could be a good thing. I do think in the long term that it makes it easier. Let's put it like this: it makes it much easier for Mancini to get rid of Verratti this way. Had he continued to play in Europe and PSG. But I still think that, he'll call him. And I think if Italy make the Euros, he'll still be part of the squad as things stand right now.
Yeah, I think a lot will depend on who else goes to Saudi Arabia between now and the end of the transfer window. The transfer window in Saudi Arabia closes a little bit after the European one. The European one, obviously the end of the month, or September the 1st or 2nd, I can't remember the exact date. And I think the Saudi one is a couple of weeks later. So there's still a long time left. If lots more kind of big players go, then the league gets to a certain quality that maybe you can make the argument that, well, actually playing in there doesn't necessarily rule you out, or shouldn't rule you out of playing. So I guess we will. Yeah, we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. But it certainly does. Yeah, like you said, it puts his top level career, his Italy career, at more risk. I'm not ready to write him off though. based on kind of 6 months. But Jorginho, I'm with you. I'm with you on Jorginho.
No, I'm just saying that it's time to start looking at the future, regardless. Like you have to.
For sure. But I mean, I guess I'm looking at the Euros.
Yeah, no, I think Verratti's going to be there at the Euros for sure. There's no doubt about it, unless he's injured, of course. But I think that it doesn't matter where he went. Like if he goes to Saudi, I don't think that'll impact Mancini's plans because he's planning for the Euros, and I think Verratti will be a key part of that. But I do think that if he goes to Saudi, it'll make it easier to move on after the Euros and start to look at bringing in more players because Italy has an abundance of talent in midfield, and sometimes you have to update how you play. And I think with Tonali, Fratesi, Barella, that is Italy's midfield. I think that's the starting midfield going into the future for me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, not long now until the World Cup, the Euro qualifiers resume next month. So, not long to go. Right, let's finish off with Baggio and Prem Face of the week. Okay, start off with Baggio. I mean, I guess there's only one.
Yeah, who have you got?
Gigi Buffon, of course.
Yeah, of course. It has to be. You have to pay tribute to to him for the career and that we've already discussed, and also I really like this appointment that of him going into the Italian national team. I can't think of a better person more suitable for that role at this point in time.
Yeah,
someone who commands the respect of everyone, many of whom he's been teammates with, and they're kind of used to him being the leader in the dressing room as well. I think that will be very, very important.
Yeah, not bad goalkeeping coach, or even a goalkeeper if we need one.
I mean, if things go really bad, they can, Gigi.
We get an injury on the brink of the tournament. Well, don't bother calling someone up.
Just have Gigi.
We just call Gigi.
Yeah, just ask him and say, how are you feeling physically? Do you reckon you can do it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right, Prem Face of the week. There's
so much.
There's so many. So let's start off with the usual Prem Face territory. So Talk Sport, and that is Gabriel Agbonlahor, who couple. First of all, he said that the Aston Villa defender Konsa is better than Rafael Varane. They were picking a combined 11.
What is this obsession they have with Rafael Varane? Like, I don't get it. They just don't. They seem to be triggered by him a lot. I don't understand what it is.
Yeah, so that's the first one. But the best one for me was the obligatory, and it's always obligatory at the end. Rasmus Højlund is unproven as he hasn't played in the Premier League.
Yeah. It literally feels like they have a list of things they need to cross off the list as soon as a player comes. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's who it is. It's like they're like robots. You can just put anyone in there and they'll say the same things. It's like it's just on repeat. It's just another day, just another person saying the same thing. It's very, very funny.
Absolutely. Right. Now, number 2. So this is the Serie A official Twitter site, who we know for many years has been just a complete joke. It's run by people that can't even speak English, let alone write English, and tweet stuff like... apex height and
average apex height. The average apex height. Thank you very much. It's really important.
Which is supposed to show what?
It's a really important stat, and it always comes at halftime. This like ridiculous stat that don't mean anything, and they just push it out on social and on the broadcast, and no one knows what it means. I have no idea.
So they tweeted last week. I'll read it out. Roma fans, at the height of their abilities, which of Mohamed Salah or Daniele De Rossi would you bring back to the club to complement the current squad? I mean, it's just unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, you're asking a Roma fan who they would have, De Rossi or Salah. I mean, you just completely. I mean, it's just. I don't even need to explain it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So this is the problem that we have with we're trying to market our league. We have people tweeting stuff out like this.
It's just it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, you just have to look at the replies. I mean, they're just getting absolutely slaughtered in the replies. Like, who is running this account? Shameful to be a Serie A account and seriously ask this.
The replies are always funny. The replies are always funny.
Yeah. Serie A marketing, doing a great job, eh?
Yeah.
Right, and the final one, I'm not sure whether this is genuine.
I don't even know who those guys are.
Yeah. So it's some American podcasters. They're talking about so Messi. He scored this incredible last-minute free kick for Inter Miami, and there's these Americans that are discussing it, and so let me read it out. So the first guy goes, so Messi, it's his first game in the MLS. The game is tied up. So when it's tied up, it goes to penalty kicks, right? And Messi, he comes in and he scores the winning penalty kick. I mean, it wasn't a penalty kick. It was a free kick to start off, and they're showing it, but they think it's a penalty kick. And then the other guy goes, so he steps up and he scores the winning penalty kick. He scored the winning penalty kick in his first game. And then the other guy goes, that can't just be a coincidence. I mean, he's a legend. So my question is, how do they pick the person that's going to take the penalty? Is it the person that gets penalised or that gets the penalty? They do it by like team captain, and then from there they do it in order of like, oh, okay, so it was the team captain, so it was Messi. And then the guy goes, we got breaking news. Messi is going to be the new captain of the MLS. We just got breaking news. The new captain of the MLS. The soccer league here in America is Messi. And another guy goes, yeah, I think we could have all seen that coming. I'm not trying to do an American accent, by the way. I wouldn't even try.
But that is so cringy.
I think that's got to be staged. I don't believe
so as well.
I don't believe there's anyone that.
No, I mean, no, it makes no sense. Like it just feels like it's. I don't know.
Talk sport where do Prem facery? I believe that's genuine. I don't believe that it's like you say.
I think it's all of. I think there is a part of
maybe occasionally.
I think they know what they're doing, and they know that they can. Like when you say stupid and outrageous things like that, they know they're going to get interactions, and that will break through the. Like it's a race to the bottom in the media echo chamber, where the dumber and more stupid takes that will piss people off more. Will always. This is what they're doing. They're not interested in educating. They're not interested in analyzing, contextualizing. They're just after to break through, say the most outrageous thing that you can, because it guarantees reactions. And then whatever tabloid that also owns TalkSport will do an article on it, and they'll get more clicks. And this is just how it goes round and round and round and round and round. So I think there is an element of that to it. To be honest, I think yes, I do think Gabby Agbonlahor believes whatever he says, but to a certain extent. But I think there is an element of
good old Gabby Agbonlahor.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is an element of
most famous for allegedly getting 3 women pregnant at the same time. The only hat trick he ever scored in his whole career.
Oh my god! Which was this? No, never mind. Right. No.
Yeah, don't go there. Don't go there. Right. Okay. On that note, let's leave it at that. We will be back on Tuesday for the Q&A episode, and then later in the week for another transfer show, which we're working on as well. So look out for those. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a great week. Until next time, ciao, ciao.